him cook! I said let him cook!
Ladies and gentlemen, from La Casa de los Lobos, the pit, here at the University of New Mexico, let's get ready to rumble! Ladies
Hope everybody got the triple hey there. How's everybody doing? My name is Ryan Tamori, coming to you live from Central New Jersey, specifically, as Rick coined, Plymouth Rock. I hope everybody is doing well. Hope everybody had a very, very, very good weekend. Enjoyed the game Saturday night. Enjoyed the game yesterday on television. Lot to get to today. I don't even know where to start, which is kind of a weird thing. I will be up front. I fell asleep during the game on Saturday night. Hold on, let me fix my mic. Give me a second, guys. I'm sorry about that.
Everybody hear me better now?
That sounds better to me, Ryan.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, let me hit you with the triple hey again.
Hey, hey!
Let me review that. My name's Ryan Tamori, not an electrical engineer. Coming to you live from Central Jersey. I don't know where to begin. I fell asleep during the game the other night. I'll get to these guys here in a second, maybe where they want to start. I want to thank our sponsors, Hydro Bar, Affordable Service, Affordable Solar, Dulce River Bakery and Coffee, Turquoise Desert Tap Room, ran into Tim Baca from Hydro Bar. Trying to figure out what's going on here. Give me a moment with the sound. I'm not sure if that's better.
You sound fine on my end here, sir.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't know. Eric said I doesn't think the mixer's working, but no, I know the mixer's working. It's me using my laptop. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Thanked our sponsors. He's been a Lobo fan since 1970. He's the voice of Western New Mexico. Thought I was going to have a better start to that. Sorry about that. His name is Mr. Ed Nunez. Ed, how you doing today?
Hey, great, Ryan. Great Lobo weekend. It didn't end up the way we wanted it to. It's Madison Square Garden yesterday, but you were there. You could probably tell us a lot more about it. We watched on TV, but being there is a whole different thing, especially in the Mecca. Great. My wife and I toured that place in 2015, and there was a WNBA game that night that I'm sorry we didn't get to because that place is, great place to watch basketball, and so I'm sure you have a lot to say. But a great football win for the Lobos on Saturday night.
And he's coming to you all the way from Northern California via Santa Clara. He's a two-time offensive state lineman for San Juan Mendoza and the St. Pius Sardins. His name is Mr. Rick Thompson.
Richard.
Rick, how you doing?
Good, Ryan. Good to see you're holding up well in Plymouth Rock there.
Yes.
I hope you enjoyed yourself in the garden. Still pretty pumped about this football win, but ready to talk about basketball too. So happy to be here.
I think, we're UNM centric, UNM basketball centric, even though we talk about a lot of other things. I think we have to start here with UNM football and Devin Dampier, the quarterback for the University of New Mexico, because he was named to given 4 awards today. He's the Midwest Offensive Player of the Week. You can vote for him for the Manning Award Star of the Week. You can go to UNM's page. We retweeted it. The Manning Award Star of the Week, and then the Davey O'Brien Great 8 Award. And probably the biggest accomplishment of the week was the AP National Player of the Week, the Associated Press Player of the Week. 367 yards of total offense, 4 touchdowns in that come from behind win, 38-35. I think that is probably the bigger news. Ned James will be joining us, former UNM quarterback, and pregame, halftime, postgame analyst on Lobo Radio Network with one JJ Buck. Gentlemen, I normally don't say that word. Rick, I'll start with you. The floor is yours. I know that you did a show, prior to me walking in the garden yesterday with Ben Wysong. I don't know where you want to start because we normally don't have this much. I don't know what's the word. I think UNM athletics was on a national stage in the 2 prevalent athletic games, contests, sports that they are, with them coming back against Washington State very late on Saturday night. And again, I fell asleep because couldn't keep my eyes open. And then on Saturday with UNM playing St. John's in the Pit. Rick, I'll start with you wherever you want to start with the topic. And I hate to do this, but I just don't know where to start. I think a lot of it people say, any news is good for publicity, but I think overall, I know UNM didn't win in men's basketball yesterday, but I still think a very cool weekend for those 2 programs and the athletic department.
Yeah, I'm still letting the football win sink in. I'm taking every media clip I can find out there. I'm watching every interview. I'm rewatching some of the Broncos stuff. I think because we're going to remember that game for a long time when we go down the road here and what it really meant for this program, for this team, and hopefully for the community going forward to buy into what they're building there. It really looked grim in that first half when you got a guy named Mateer going down the field at will, completing every pass. I think he was 12 of 12 at one point. Really looked like he was just playing pitch and catch in the backyard. And, when the second half started, I'm sitting there and I'm just thinking if they can get one stop to start the half, what that would mean for this second half. And not did they just get one, they got 4 stops in a row to start the second half. And this defense hasn't played that consistently all season. And then when it counted, the end of the game, they bat the ball down and they get that over with. It's a tough day for Washington State fans. I've been trying to read some of their social media the past days, and it's an ugly place for them. They want that coach canned. And one thing I really wasn't thinking about yesterday is on the final drive, as Dampier is scrambling down the field time and time again, why didn't they finally use their timeouts? Once it got around a minute, you could see the Lobos were in no hurry to score, and they were actually working the clock. coach from Washington State said he was running it off analytics and it was in their best interest to not stop the clock. So wasn't really thinking about that at the time, but now thinking about it, that's really a head scratcher for me as to why Wazoo wouldn't leave themselves more time. But as you saying, Ryan, Devin Dampier, he deserves all those awards. I've never seen a player put a team on his back the way he did. 28 carries. He was exhausted, but you wouldn't have known it. He just kept going. And I mean, it felt like I was playing a video game, just dropping back and then running wherever I wanted, and Dampier is the guy to do it. So fantastic that he's getting this national recognition. I'm still letting it sink in, but Ed, did you catch any of the game live, or did you have to catch it all on replay?
No, we were at the Zany Resort Casino with my wife, and she had a Catholic Charities gala, but Nick had it on his phone. We were kind of trying to peek over, and finally we just started watching the game. Yeah, my wife was okay with it though. I had to make sure because I got to make sure I give her attention. I love her; she's my wife. I don't want her mad at me or Nick. But we started watching about the third quarter on, and I went back and watched the replay yesterday. But I asked Coach Mendenhall today because he had mentioned about Dampier. He wanted to keep him to 10 carries. He's at 28, and he said, "Hey, the bigger the headache. In other words, the more the more he's got to have the ball in his hands, and he hasn't got hurt. He's stayed upright the whole season. And I got to say, I think I meant to ask him this: the second to last drive, they're at first and goal at the 3, and then they have the offsides. And I wanted to ask him what was the thought of maybe going for it there. They kicked the field goal, and then Washington State came down the field and scored right away. So it worked out, but I was kind of wondering, and then why didn't they go for it there? But it worked out. But they moved the ball really well. But Ned James will come on later, and they ran well out of the jet sweep formation. Jacobs got a lot of yards. Sanders got a lot of yards on that jet sweep formation, a bunch. And Ned's going to have a real good explanation of what kind of defense Washington State was playing. He explained that a little bit at the press conference today. So it's a fantastic look. And I want to put things in perspective. I do. Now, we were hard on them earlier in the year. We were. They weren't playing so well in the middle of the year. You mentioned I'm a fan since 70. To me, if we're going to say Montana State was a bad loss, maybe it was. This is a big win. We've got to be honest and say that too. To me, the biggest win, 20 years since they beat a ranked opponent? It's a huge win, one of the biggest in Lobo program history. There's no question about it. So I think they deserve all the accolades. Donovan Devin Dampier. Rick, when you mentioned all those honors that he received and he deserved them, Mateer, the Washington State quarterback, apparently has $1 million offer to play somewhere else next year. And I guess my question, it's the elephant in the room. What's it going to cost to keep Dampier here? It's going to be a lot of money. But I think, too, one of my friends said this. He said, hey, we got to try to keep him here because if they end the season on a winning note, if they beat Hawaii and they still have to beat them and go to a bowl game and win the bowl game, how are you going to, he might leave still. But you have to try to do whatever you can to keep him here. When is the last time we've had a player ever like that? I can't remember ever. And I've been a fan a long time that makes plays with his arm and his legs the way he does. And if they don't have him, and I think Ned James will say this, he expected Washington State to be a little bit better against New Mexico's run, and they weren't. They got dominated. Let's face it. New Mexico dominated them at the line of scrimmage and ran, I don't know what they averaged per play, but it was a lot. So be a great win for New Mexico on Saturday. I was really pumped. Nick was so happy. I mean, Nick is a huge Lobo football. He's almost as big as Lobo football fan as he is Lobo basketball. So a great win for New Mexico on Saturday night.
I hope they bring back the old Lobo logo where he's licking his chops all the time. Get rid of that shield. Just mainly, I don't know if you would necessarily do it for a win over Washington State. And I'm not, if somehow a Washington State alumni or fan has found this stream, I'm in New Jersey now and was here for the St. John's game in New York yesterday. I was kind of bummed. I woke up maybe about like 12:45 Eastern time and looked at my phone, and it was two things. It's because I had money on BYU and saw that stupid punt, try to field that punt, which was one of the stupidest plays I've ever seen. And that cost BYU probably a spot in the college football playoff for as good as they've been all year. And then I saw my phone and I was like, I had to double take and thought I was still dreaming that UNM had come back because I thought the game was over. It was 28-7 at one point in the first half. I think I was like, this is not good. And I even called my mom in the morning and she woke up. She was up pretty early and I actually called her on the train and she was like, wait, they won? And I said, yeah, they came back and won. But we reference this game a lot. At least I do on this show. That's the last time they've beaten a ranked opponent since October 25th, 2003, when they beat Utah in Salt Lake City 47-35. That game is epic. I remember where I was watching that game. It was at my buddy Mike's dad's house. I think the first half we had watched at a bar restaurant, and then made our way over to his house, and they just ran down Urban Meyer and Alex Smith and that really good team throat. And that's the only Mountain West Conference loss in Urban Meyer's history, and his only loss is to Rocky Long. It was the first win over ranked team it was 27 consecutive losses. And it was UNM's first win over a top 20 team since November 5th in 1994 when they beat Utah at home.
Okay, real quick comment there, Ryan, if you don't mind. I was at that game. Stony Case, Winslow Oliver, I remember being there, and the fans storming the field. They stormed the field that day too. Beautiful afternoon. I still remember it. So yeah, that was a great memory. And I think you mentioned 1994. That's a long. Nick was 2 years old. So I don't know how old you guys were, man. You guys weren't that much older.
7.
So that was a long time ago, and I remember that afternoon like it was yesterday. I really do. So sorry about that, Ryan.
I think, before I definitely want to hit on St. John's before we get to Ned James and talk more football, which, basketball is, you've got 2 games this week. They play Grambling on Thursday and then Texas Southern, who they've played, I think 3 years in a row or at least 2 years in a row on Sunday night. I think sorry, again, lost my train of thought. I think what I wanted to ask was, and I'll give my thoughts. I had been searching all year for Bronco Mendenhall and his effect on the culture at UNM. But and I also got to throw out while I'm here in New Jersey, Wreckers beat the Mike Loxley led Maryland Terrapins. I was actually happy about that because I think he's 6-2 against Wreckers. I think all year I had been waiting for Bronco Mendenhall to get that win. Wyoming was bad. Wyoming was really bad considering how much they suck. But simply put, and Rick or Ed, you can defer off of this. This might be in his first year a program defining win. It is a top 20 team on the road, at home. You come back. I mean, Ed, I'll throw that out there. It has to be a program defining win. I know there's a lot of work to still do, but when you're sitting at 5-6 like this, and not to mention Utah State went to Maui and it's in Maui, I believe, and beat Hawaii 55-10 on Saturday. So there's that. And they've got 2 weeks to prepare for Timmy Chang and his squad. Hawaii sits at 4-7. But Ed, I'll start with you. I mean, does it feel like a program defining win?
Yeah, they asked him that today, and he said not quite yet, but yeah, he said, look at the reaction from the players. I got to say this, Coach Mendenhall in the press conferences, it's a circle with, his circle. That's it. Anybody outside the circle, hey, he's kind of an interesting guy to me. But I was watching afterward, the players, God, a couple of them were hugging him. They looked like some of them might have been crying, man. So it's obvious they play their guts out for him. That's obvious. Now they asked him about that, and he said, not quite yet. They've got work to do. They have to go to Hawaii and win that game, and then get into a bowl game. So I know he felt really good about the win. Who wouldn't? I mean, that's the 19th ranked team, the 18th ranked, 19th ranked, whatever they were in the nation. And this team had been, up and down. They won 3 and then lost 2. When they lost 2, I got to say, I didn't think, I picked them to win 38-31, but I got to say, I wasn't 100% sure. I thought Jacob Neff did a great job on the Lobo Howl of breaking down Washington State and how potent on offense they were. And he was right about that. They were, but New Mexico came through when they needed to. I had said too they needed a bend but don't break defense. And Rick, you pointed out the stops they got in the second half, which were important. They started, and that gave the Lobos, New Mexico, it gave them confidence because the Washington State defense had no answer for Dampier or Sanders. They had no answer at all. And then they sprinkled in a couple of passes here and there, but the running game was just dominant. So, I think Coach Mendenhall wouldn't quite call it that yet. They've still got work to do, but certainly a great win, a great regular season win that puts them in contention to be where they want to be, what they wanted to be all along, and they haven't been since 2016. I think that needs to be noted as well. They haven't been to a bowl game since then. They still have work to do. You mentioned they have to go to Hawaii, and it's got 2 weeks to go to prepare. Some guys are banged up. Dampier, 28 carries on Saturday. Let them rest and heal up, and they should be ready to go, man. I don't see this team. I see them winning big at Hawaii. I really do. They're hungry. They know what Ned James and I ran into safety Christian Ellis today at the complex. Just the nicest young man you could ever meet. Really was. The team is excited. I believe they're on a good track, and I believe they're going bowling, man. I really do, and I can't wait.
Well, I don't care if Broncos says it's a program-defining win or not. It is. The fans are defining it as one. The fans have not been more excited about a win or the program since I can remember, since those games you guys are talking about. So, I just hope that they don't have a letdown and think that this is their bowl game in 2 weeks, right? They get to fly to Hawaii, to Paradise. They get 2 weeks to prepare. They just came off this highlight win where they're riding on top of the world. I don't expect there to be a letdown, but it could be possible. And, Hawaii is a whole different animal at home. They're not going to show up like they did in Logan and lay an egg. I just saw them put UNLV to a 2-point game 2 weeks ago myself with my own eyes. Brendan Schrager is a capable quarterback. He's not as accurate as Mateer by any means, but he has 2 or 3 weapons on the outside that are going to scorch New Mexico. So that's still going to happen. So if the Lobos can put together the offensive performance they have, though, I don't think the Hawaii defense is going to be able to hang. So I say it's program defining. I think everyone else is. It doesn't really matter if the coach is or not, because that's how everyone else is looking at it.
One more point I wanted to make, Ryan. I think the other thing that Ned James always talks about with the hidden yardage and the turnovers. I don't think New Mexico did they turn the ball over Saturday? I don't believe they did they?
Well, let me look at the box score.
I don't remember. In the second half, I didn't see them turn it over.
That's Utah State, and no interceptions by Dampier.
One thing on that, though.
Go ahead, Rick.
They dodged 2 bullets in the first quarter where Dampier is pitching the ball past the line of scrimmage. He cannot do that any longer. Look, Sanders didn't even know the ball was coming. And on the second one, he looked at Dampier and he gave him some type of motion. I don't remember, shaking his head like, dude, no, please stop doing that. It's not the fourth quarter, or this isn't the end of the game. And just 2 more bullets that the Lobos dodged in that game. That first punt should have been blocked when the Lobos punted. I don't know how it wasn't. And then in the second half, when Washington State had that long punt return, they were down to the 40 or 30 of UNM. And then it got called all the way back due to a holding call. So UNM got the benefit of a few calls, even though they got that late one in the red zone that forced them to kick. So they did get a few lucky breaks. Those 2 early pitches, though, were pretty wild.
Now, you know what, though? That's true. Those are true, but they didn't turn it over. That's, you're right. You can't do that. And I remember that pitch now, and that was a 6-yard loss at least, but they didn't turn it over. So they didn't, Washington State didn't get a short field. And I think that's what Ned always talks about is Dampier had played well against, Colorado State, not so much, but he had, 2 interceptions, and then losing to Wyoming, that pick 6. So I think when they take care of the ball, they're a much different team. And, so he's had some faux pas during the season for the season that he's had. He's had some, but the ball's in his hands a lot. And Coach Mendenhall said that. 28 carries for a quarterback that you wanted to just limit to 10. So you're saying, I have to have the ball in his hands. And it worked. So, they did dodge some bullets, but they didn't turn it over. And that's huge. As far when Ned James talks about that, no turnovers, that makes a difference. And that helped New Mexico. And Rick's right. They dodged a couple of bullets, but they were able to to pull it off at the end. And I was a little nervous though, but I think Rick and I, had in the group text said that 21 seconds, 3 timeouts. I was waiting for them to hit one seam pass. That incomplete pass on the sideline just about did it. Because if they complete that pass and they called it incomplete, it was incomplete. He didn't finish the catch. But if they complete that, they're in business. A little bit of business. All they need is a quick out, and then bring the field goal team on. When that was up, when it was up, the ref said it was incomplete. That was the ball game. It really was. And they had to go for the Hail Mary, but it didn't even reach the end zone anyway. So that was the ball game. And I still was a little nervous, man, because New Mexico 6-61 against ranked opponents, 7-61 now. I've seen a lot of those games in the past, and you know what? Give them all the credit they deserve it. They deserve it. Devin Dampier, one of the best players in the nation. He really is. We have to say that. So a big win and a little bit more work to do. So one more win, man. One more win and they're in. And I know we'll all be watching when they play Hawaii for sure.
That game is on November 30th in Hawaii. I don't know if there's a time yet. I'm sure Sean Ryder will be making the.
I think it's 9 p.m. Mountain, if I'm not mistaken.
It is 11 Eastern, yeah. So 9 p.m. Mountain. So, oh boy, that's gonna be a lot of fun. Very quickly, gonna go to Ronnie Chavez. I was listening to the radio morning show that has Symbieta and JJ Buck. Jeff, I believe, did the play-by-play with Dontrell Moore. There's a reason I'm reading this because, yes, Jeff did it. Portnoy was in New York. Dontrell Moore has come on the show many times. I always love talking to Dontrell. And he mentioned that Dontrell was in tears in the booth. I'm sure he was. He lives, breathes Lobo football. I was talking to Ben Wysong yesterday and got pretty candid with him, and he was like, honestly, I checked out during the Loxley years, man. They were just horrendous. And I hope he's not upset for me saying that. And now, he's like, obviously he's got 2 nephews on the team, and now they found ways to win. But do you guys remember when we had Kurt Roth on earlier in the year, and he mentioned he thought this was a 6 or 7 win team?
Yeah.
He's looking like the smartest guy.
And we said he was crazy.
Well, he is crazy. I love him. But yeah, I thought he was legitimately crazy when he said that.
Predicted to win 1.5 games.
Game and a half.
Right.
And one game we're not talking about that they could have easily won is Colorado State. They camped out on Colorado State's red zone and came away with nothing time and time again. I don't know how Colorado State keeps winning, but UNM could easily be up there with UNLV right now. If a few breaks go their way. I think that game to me was almost as unforgivable as the Wyoming game if you look back on it. And I don't want to be negative, but there's just those two games, and look where they could be. That shows you how close they are with such limited resources and what Bronco's been able to do with, just what he has. It's really been fun to watch.
Would you, either of you, before we take a quick commercial break and we'll go to Ned James? I know basketball is a big deal. I think the win slightly overshadows basketball, given the context that I thought yesterday's matchup was probably the second biggest story next to Chiefs and Bills. But would either of you be fine with the team playing in the New Mexico Bowl?
Yeah, you know what? I would have no problem with that at all. And according to some of the chatter I heard today at the press conference, that's if they win against Hawaii, that's exactly where they're headed. So I've got no problem with that. They haven't been bowling. The last time was the New Mexico Bowl. Now, Coach Mendenhall did say this before the season started that, hey, we may not always want to play the New Mexico Bowl if we get into a bowl. But this year, I think he wouldn't have a problem with that. And, I wouldn't mind seeing them, play there. I think Jeff Symbieta wouldn't mind seeing that. That would be hopefully a good draw for the New Mexico Bowl. So, no, I wouldn't have a problem.
I mean, I wouldn't have a problem. I'm just happy they're winning. Would I prefer them to be in another bowl game? Definitely, yes. I think to get them exposure in another city, allow another fan base, to see that, because we got one of the most potent offenses in the country. I think they're getting that national attention. I think they could draw crowds at other stadiums. So happy that they're even up for it, but I'd rather have them go elsewhere if I could pick.
Yeah, I would normally like to see them go elsewhere. I think for year one this year where it is, I think this is okay. I don't think it needs to become a repetitive thing. But I think it would be good for everybody involved and maybe get the city, the state, the county, I don't know, everybody, UNM alumni. Um, and somebody made a joke that they thought it was actually an away, that it was a home, it was a Wazoo home game, and that people, I don't know what, if Rick, if you had mentioned that, I thought that was
I
bonkers.
did want to mention how low the attendance was for that game. It was still around 14,000, and when you saw the away stands, it was a barren wasteland. And when they're showing people rush the field, I mean, not a lot, right? I mean, it just sucks that more people haven't bought in yet. This was the biggest opportunity to see this type of game in countless years, and I don't really understand why the football culture isn't in Albuquerque. There's a lot of good youth football programs and coaches, great high school teams, but for some reason, they can't get their butts to that stadium, regardless of how good they are or who they're playing. So it's confusing.
You know, I always mention I always mention Mike Loxley as the asteroid, and he completely destroyed the planet of Lobo football. And people haven't returned. People didn't even return for Bob Davie. I'm going to tell you something. I think I've heard people complaining about getting in and out of that stadium. Go anywhere else, and it's probably twice as worse. I don't necessarily know if I like how the police, who they hire to kind of block off University there. But everybody, and I'm guilty of it for living there. You think that you can get somewhere in 5 to 10 minutes, and people complain and moan. I mean, I 20 years ago, you couldn't get in and out of that stadium. It was so hard. I don't know what happened. I gather there, if they can figure out how to win this bowl game, there might be a little bit more enthusiasm. We're going to take a commercial break and give Ned James a call. We'll have Ned James on, former UNM quarterback, Lobo Radio Network analyst. I'm Ryan Tamori, Rick Thompson, Ed Nunez. This is the Pit Press Live. If I can find our commercials, it's been a long weekend. There you go. Be right back.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
Welcome back to the show. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties with everything and trying to get it set up. My U.S. history degree and print journalism degree, hard at work. Hey, we're joined by a former UNM quarterback, and he's an analyst for the Lobo Radio Network. You can find him on pregame, postgame, halftime. I always get that out of order with JJ Buck on 770 96.3. His name is Mr. Ned James. Ned, how you doing today?
Hey, doing great, guys. How are you guys doing?
I'm hanging in there. I'm in the greatest state of all. It's New Jersey. I'm going to toss it over to Ned, right away. I love this, Ned. Ed, he's going to start us off with some questions. Ed, the floor is yours.
You know, Ned, we had a good talk today at the press conference that sat together a little bit. And, one of the things you had said is New Mexico could run the ball. You said that if New Mexico ran the ball well, I should rephrase that. You thought they had a chance to win. They ran the ball well. They didn't turn the ball over. Ricky Thompson mentioned that one of the pitch outs that Dampier had in the first half, went 6 yards out of bounds. They dodged a bullet. They dodged a couple other bullets, but they didn't turn the ball over. They ran the ball well. And one of the things you mentioned today was the defensive front that Washington State was playing. Now, I had to really listen to it, and I understood what you were saying, but maybe you can explain to everyone that's listening about what you meant about the kind of defense they're playing.
Well, yeah, they played a 4-down front, but I really thought that Andrew Edson, number 95, Ansel, number 92, and David Gusta, number 60, the three defensive linemen, and they rotated their defensive line quite a bit. I thought those guys would cause a lot of problems up front for this Lobo offensive line and for Devin Dampier in this offense. And it was the exact opposite. And what you and I talked about at the brunch at the press conference earlier today was our defensive scheme versus their defensive scheme. We talked about the 3-down lineman look as opposed to the 4-down lineman look, and how different the two were in solving the riddle of the RPO quarterback, because the quarterback is the extra man that you don't account for in the defensive scheme by alignment based on where he is and how much he's going to run the ball. So you have to find schemes that favor you being able to disguise how your defense is going to look to that quarterback in order to get him on the ground and get him out of the run game. And, you could talk about one isolated play, which is a pitch. I mean, they had bad plays on their offense too. You're going to have bad plays, but the crux of everything is, how do you stop that extra man that you have to account for in the scheme on defense? Now, talking to a lot of guys around the league, and that's the question I've always asked, with the RPO guys, being a wishbone guy myself, playing underneath the center, but these guys are in shotgun, but they're using the same principles of the wishbone, but they're just in shotgun. So like you said, with the triple option, he ran a speed option, pitched it, and the ball went out of bounds 5 or 6 yards back. And that was one of the, just a negative play on their part as far as yards go. But as far as plays go, they didn't turn the ball over. But one of the things that, with the 3-down lineman look, you're able to kind of cheat because you got the nose guard who's over the center, and he's 2-gapping. He's playing both the right side of the center and the left side of the center. Those are called the A gaps. Now you got B, C, D, et cetera, as you go further out, based on alignment of guards and tackles and tight ends. And so you cheated by having that nose guard handle 2 gaps. And the inside linebackers, the 3-4 defense, the 2 inside linebackers, they're cheating almost a half a man to the ball and then outside, so they could scrape and play some of the option stuff because you take your ends and you play them on the tackles, but you slide them inside so they can kind of get a piece of the guard, so the guards don't get a straight shot at those linebackers, and your linebackers can play that RPO quarterbacks. And Bronco went to that defense because their head coach in his press conference spoke about Bronco leaving the 4-down lineman, because in the beginning of the year, the 4-down lineman look is what Bronco used versus Montana State, and then against Auburn and Arizona and some of those other schools. But then they moved to this 3-4 defense, or people call it 3-3-5 or whatever you want to call it, but it's really a 3-4 defense. And what they did was they did that to help them with the RPO guys and some of the run game stuff. It really kind of helped them, even though they're not giving, they're still giving up a lot of yards. They're not giving up big plays to these quarterbacks. And so I think it really helped them in this game, even though the quarterback ran pretty well. You're talking about two of the best RPO quarterbacks in America. And I just could not believe we didn't have 30,000 people to say, I'm a footballer. JJ teases me all the time, and you're the only guy in Albuquerque who cares about football. But I said, these are the two best RPO guys in the country, and we don't have enough fans here to even witness this. But like you're saying, Ed, with the defense, you've got to contain these quarterbacks. They weren't able to do it with those guys who I thought looked pretty good on film. Now, they hadn't been playing really well on defense. It just seemed like they just don't really have an identity on defense. They're just trying to scramble and just dial up defensive calls. And they got caught a couple times. And Dampier, now he can make throws. And so you saw that when they tried to blitz him and they faked the jet sweep. And I was talking to Luke Weissong, and I told him, I said, I know you're hurt. You're not injured. You're hurt. So it's hard for you to give everything. I said, but your team is lifted by you being out there on the field. I told him that in the training room last week. And I said it helped them in that game the week before against San Diego State, and it helped them, this past weekend against Washington State. On the deep touchdown pass to Caleb Medford, Weissong is in the backfield. Weissong, he's running as hard as he can out of the backfield, and you can see they're all pointing at him. The safeties are both looking at Weissong coming out of the backfield. Well, Medford is just as fast as Weissong, is just a little bit slower. He's streaking down the middle of the field, and they say, "Oh crap, there he goes!" And then Devin Dampier and they're blitzing Devin Dampier. We get him protected just long enough for him to see Medford. He throws it down the field. But I just really thought this defensive line with the 4 down linemen would find a way to get to Devin Dampier, and they were not able to because of the fact that they could not read. The first play of the game was indicative of what was going to happen the rest of the game. It seemed like to me. They really get a good rush on the guard. 60, David Gusty, he just knocks the guard all the way back. Devin Dampier sees him, dodges him, and runs for 12 yards in the first down. So it was probably like, oh crap, here we go. Now they started spying him. They weren't rushing as hard. They weren't coming up the field. And it really kind of, I thought, hampered their defensive effort up front. And that was kind of sort of what we were talking about. I know it's kind of technical with the language as far as the linebackers and the defensive front, but it really was the reason in the second half, along with other things, that the Lobos were able to prevail and beat a ranked team for the first time in 20 some odd years.
Ned, you made a lot of great points today when we were talking. You just made some now, but they ran well out of the jet sweep, as they really did. Sanders got a lot of big yards out of the jet sweep. Tell us a little bit about Jason Beck. What kind of game did he call, did you think?
Oh, Jason Beck. The thing that Jason Beck does a really good job of, in my opinion, is number one, personnel changing. Whether it's 2 tight ends, 3 wide receivers, if it's 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 receivers, whether it's 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end. He changes up the personnel so much, and it's hard for you to get indicators on plays. He does a lot of shifting. He does a lot of motion and formation, different kind of. He runs unbalanced formations, which you can do in college, different than the pros. He does all those different things, and then you got the magic man at quarterback. You've got Devin Dampier, and I thought, just like how Coach Bronco Mendenhall mentioned in his press conference today, if the quarterback got too many touches, he would get banged up there. And that's my NFL background. I mean, you don't want your quarterbacks getting hit that much. And so I thought with him touching the ball so much, he would get banged up. But this guy has been a warrior. I mean, Devin Dampier, he's been just he's been the Iron Man for this team. And with the jet sweep, what happens is, you can keep running jet sweep motion. You run jet sweep, fake the jet sweep. And so they're chasing it. They don't know if he's got the ball. The quarterback is so little behind those defensive linemen. You don't know if he has the ball or if he gave it off, handed it off. And a couple of times they couldn't see because all Dampier does is ride the jet sweep guy, and then he pulls the ball and fakes like he's running it. And everybody knows that's the guy to stop. Number 4 is the guy you want to stop. They're not thinking about number 6, the jet sweep. and they're thinking more also about Luke Weissong, believe it or not. I see when I watched the film of the game, the coach's copy of the game, and you could see them tracking Luke Weissong, even though he's working on, he's got a bum ankle, and he's still running effectively, but he's just not his true self. And they said after the game he was just really down because Luke Weissong dropped several passes if you watch that game. And I just recall on the sideline, the coach going over and hugging him and saying, "Hey man, look, we're going to need you. You got to keep pick your head up. You're doing the best you can." And it was really cold. And it's nothing worse than being a track guy like Luke Weissong is, having a bum ankle and it's really cold out. And so, but I like I told him last 2 weeks ago, I'm like, "Hey, look, man, those guys are feeding off of you. You're the bell cow. I mean, you were the guy who came out and electrified those first few games, and now he's banged up. These little small guys, they get banged up, but they're looking to you. And so, despite how you play, you gotta show them that if you show your toughness, it's going to reflect in the team. And I think that had a lot to do with why the jet sweep. And Sanders is fast, man. Here's a guy who was the third string running back. You can talk all you want about him being great, and he's been great the last 3 games. He's been phenomenal. But at the same time, those other 2 guys were ahead of him. Javon Jacobs and Nakari Rogers were ahead of him. He had started the season as number 1, and then he moved to number 3. And that just goes to show you, and this is the lesson kids should learn. You got to sometimes stick with it. Because, I mean, I was talking to the running back coach one time, and I said, "Hey, number 6, man, how's he handling it? The fact you got these other 2 guys ahead." I said his body language, and he's like, "Yeah, but he knows he's just got to stick with it, and eventually something will change." And it did. It eventually changed. And so the jet sweep stuff, it all comes from the fact that when you're on defense, you're targeting certain guys, and with the quarterback being so little, you can't find him, and he's the guy you really have to stop. It helps the jet sweep go based on the fact that they're running counters, they're running counters, they're running a fake counter, throw the ball. So everything's coming off of one look, and it was confusing to the defense. And when you have that, and you got indecision on defense, that's when you get big plays out of the jet sweep, and that's what happened with the Lobos Saturday.
Yeah, they had a couple more questions, Ryan. I'll turn it right back to you. But Ned, you were at the conference today, the press conference, and a program they asked Coach Mendenhall, is it a program defining win, and it's certainly the Lobos' biggest win here in some time, 20 years since they've beat a ranked opponent. You've been here a long time. You coached in the pros for a while. You played the quarterback position, all-city quarterback in Los Angeles. You told us, I didn't even know that, and you told me that today. What do you rank this as far as Lobo wins in the times that you spent here? You've been here a long time.
Oh, man. Old guys like us, Ed, people don't realize Ed Nunez, he played in Johnson Gym. He might as well be a Lobo basketball or Lobo UNM football player, because if you played in Johnson Gym in the 80s, you had to pack a lunch, man. You had to come ready, because the boys were in there and they weren't joking around the Johnson Gym.
Oh, man.
Even the football players went in there, and you better have your head on a swivel, man, because people are coming after you, and you better be ready to play. But yeah, as far as the wins go, I mean, this is huge for the program. Having a ranked, all my buddies in LA, because I've been hyping us up because of the quarterback. Last week everybody was upset in California because I said, hey, we went 2-0 against California, and all my friends were making fun of New Mexico, saying, where's that at? Is it in Guadalajara? Is the school in Guadalajara, Ned? All these little sarcastic snips that guys are taking shots at us because we beat UCLA and San Diego State, their precious baby UCLA basketball in California, and they're USC football in California, but their precious baby, the UCLA basketball team, got whipped. So everybody's got the jokes now. So everybody was watching us against Washington State this week with their New Mexico jokes. But I got the last laugh because I'm sending them every clip, every AP. Devin Dampier. I think this is the first time, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ed. This is the first time, and I think Frank Macagliano mentioned this, that anybody's ever got AP Player of the Week at the University of New Mexico football. And so that was something that I thought was.
Yeah, go ahead, Ned.
Yeah, I don't think anybody else has ever gotten AP Player of the Week. at the University of New Mexico that Devin Dampier got this week for his performance against, the 18th ranked Washington State. And I had sent out pregame, that God, what is the guy's name on game day that predicted that we would upset Washington State, number 18? It was only one guy. There's 5 of them up there.
It was
it was
Reese Davis.
Reese Davis. That's right. Reese Davis. So I sent that out to everybody in California before the game and got back all the jokes, hey, you're going to lose by 40. You're going to lose by 30, Pac-12. And now I sit back that we're the Pac-12 killers because we killed UCLA and we killed Washington State in football. And so I'm getting I hear crickets because nobody's responding from me taunting them in California. All my buddies in LA and California, I'm hearing crickets because nobody's responding to me. And then I had to send out the AP Player of the Week for Devin Dampier. But it's like you said, it's just a great win for the program. I don't think, they've had, like I said, since 2003, we haven't beat a ranked team. They came up with some stats. I don't think Utah counts. I think beating a Washington State is much a bigger deal, in my opinion, than beating the University of Utah. And JJ gets on me all the time because I have no respect for Utah, Boise State, the Fresno States, all those teams. I have very little respect because I grew up in the 80s. And if you knew in the 80s, Boise was just cow pastures. Fresno State is where they make, sell oranges or grow oranges. And Utah was a team that we beat on the regular here in football. And so so those teams nowadays, because they moved up in conferences and they moved up in relevance, I don't give them the same respect as everybody else does. Probably should, but I just don't. Yeah, it was really a big win, I think, for the entire state. It kind of, like I've always said this, that I think UNM is the front porch of this, not only this university, but of the state to the rest of the country. And I think UNM athletics is that emblem that I think we can hold up and kind of flash to the rest of the country after this week. And I think a lot of people know who we are now with the AP Player of the Week. And everybody talks about Porto and NIL. That's the joke that everybody's throwing back at me because they think Dampier. They said that the second week of the season. There's no way that kid's gonna be at New Mexico next year. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. The stranger things have happened in the sports world, and we'll see what happens at the end of this season.
Ryan, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I told you to take over because I fell asleep in the second quarter of this game, and I've been watching highlights. Can you talk about how well the defense played in the second half and to limit this potent Washington State offense to just 7 points?
Right. And that's the thing JJ and I talked about at halftime, because JJ is looking at me and I was like, JJ, it's going to be, and it held true. And I didn't know it would happen, but it kind of held true. I said that first series, because they got the ball first coming out at halftime, up 14 points, 28-14. I said, they've got to stop them on this first opening drive, because that's going to carry. If they go down and score, that momentum itself will make it tough for the Lobos to come back. And when they stopped them and then we got the ball back and we were able to go down and score, now it's a football game. Now, and one of the things I talk about that JJ laughs at me all the time about is I always talk about the altitude. I always say in Albuquerque, you could say what you want. And Ed, you're going to remember this because you were there with me probably or around me sometime during basketball. I've always said this, and I told the old basketball coach that left here, went to Utah State, I said, look, when he first came here just a couple of years ago, I said, we're always going to beat somebody that's ranked, that's really good in the pit. We're always going to beat them that's ranked, because I don't care who you are. If we've got energy, the altitude is going to get you. You're not going to be able to beat us here. We're always going to beat a good team because of the altitude. And I kept telling JJ that. I said, JJ, I don't care what anybody says. I know you don't believe this. I said, but this second half, the altitude is going to tell the tale. Now, everybody's out here fresh. These are young guys. I said, but, they're going to feel a little different. Their bodies are going to feel a little different. Plus, it was cold in the second half. And I thought, it's going to slow down. I said, this kid, that's why this kid will be the top sophomore, I think, NIL guy going into next season. This Mateer kid, he was throwing darts in the first half. He really is a good passer. And I said, this guy, UNM's got a problem keeping Devin Dampier. Washington State's got to have a problem keeping that kid because that kid could spin it and he could run. So I thought, okay, it's going to slow down a little bit for him offensively. I said, it's just a matter of and I thought the scheme that they had defensively was going to slow the run down. And Ed, you know what I believe? I believe offense sells tickets, defense wins games, special teams wins championships. If they could just win the hidden yardage, don't get too many penalties, and don't turn it over. We didn't turn it over, and that was the key. But I thought that they didn't have the same pack. They didn't pack the same punch that they had the first half in the second half. Hence, only the 7 points. The one thing that they did that I thought was counterproductive is they couldn't run the ball effectively. They were running 2 and 3 running backs. I knew the running back was a little nicked up, their starting running back, but they could not run the ball like we ran it. Now you're thinking that we're down 28-14 at half. We're going to have to start spinning it. We're going to have to start making throws to come back. But we're able to run the ball, control it, not turn it over, and that led to us going ahead and them. The fact that we were like 0 for 5 on third down the first half, and we went 6 for 9 on third down the second half. So we converted some third downs, which was a struggle the first half. And that's because they had more energy. They had that energy. But I'm just telling you, the altitude, I mean, you could say what you want, a mile high, and it makes you crazy or whatever in Denver, and we're higher than Denver. So I know it affected the kids. I think we had, because we were in it all the time, we had the energy, we had the electric, and I think our kids really believed that they had a shot to stay with these guys. The quarterback just made some phenomenal throws for Washington State. But our quarterback, Devin Dampier, is just special. You can say what you want. Bronco said it in the press conference. Hey, we know he's little. We were going to limit his touches. But as the season gone on, we're going to have to pick it up because he's the best guy. And he's right about that. I mean, he is the best guy out there. And they couldn't touch him. The way he's running is phenomenal because what do? You pick your poison. They tried to blitz him. He runs the fake jet sweep, and he sends Wysong out the backfield, and everybody's screaming to get Wysong on the rail route. He's running straight up the number. He's trying to, and he's coming out of the backfield. So, I mean, he's got a long way to go, but he's really humping, and the safety sees him. But Medford is streaking right down the hash marks. And I'm thinking, they got to get him. They can't worry about Wysong coming out on the rail route, but they chased Wysong, and he split him, and it was too late before they saw it. They didn't know which safety. Both of the safeties didn't know which guy was going to take Medford, screaming up the middle of the field. But it's just those kind of things that Devin Dampier creates, and that's how they were able to come back that second half. They just really shut down the run, and they couldn't convert on third down, and we converted on third down, and we didn't turn the ball over, and our kicking game didn't kill us. Aaron Rodriguez, the punter, averaged 50 yards a punt when we did have to punt. Those hidden yardage in the kicking game, that stuff helps you in the long run because it all adds up in the end, and that's why we were able to prevail and win this game in the second half.
How important of a win do you think it was, and is it a program building win? I don't know if you already answered that. I apologize. I was trying to bruise the show, but I mean,
no.
From a let me backtrack. How good of a performance was this at quarterback that you've seen?
Well, it's really a good performance, and the guy. This is the second straight game. The guy's almost had 200 yards. The guy had 200 yards rushing the game before. He had 200 yards rushing this game. Who rushes for 200 yards in a college football game? Please tell me who's rushing for 200 yards and he's playing quarterback. I'm trying to get people because these LA guys are calling me about all these great players at USC and Texas and Alabama and Auburn and Michigan and whatever. I said, tell me a guy who rushes for 200 yards in consecutive games. That's what this kid is doing. I said, this kid is special. And the kid is special to me off the scramble. I mean, that's the thing that's getting me. I mean, when he drops back the pass, like they're scared to rush because they don't want to look bad. And so he's able to kind of just look downfield and pick and choose. And his completion percentage is low. And it's because he had a lot of drop passes. He probably had 5 drop passes. Wysong dropped 3 himself. I know that for a fact. And so I'm just saying he's able to keep his composure. He comes over to the sideline. You see him talk to the offensive lineman. I've just never seen a young man that composed. He's so young still, and but he's mature. And the hard part is just everybody's talking about portal. How you going to pay him? How you going to keep him? But you don't know. You just never know. Somebody's going to be impressed. Sure, somebody may throw some money at him, but we could find money. They've got money here. They got money when they want to have money. They're paying the head coach double what they paid the last head coach. So, and it's always, poor me, we don't have the money. But at the same time, they typically can find it when they need to find it. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Would you be upset if they've got a bye week? I'll start there. They've got a bye week, and it's unusual because it's their third bye week of the season, and it comes right before their last game. How do you view it as a major advantage or disadvantage?
Oh, it's a major advantage. It's they're all about business over there. I give Bronco credit for that. I mean, he really does have a structure in place that it's really about the football. They don't care about basketball. They don't care. I mean, everybody here in this town talks basketball. They'll talk women's soccer, whatever. But he's about the business of football. He ain't about the business of what are they doing over on campus? What are they doing? The New Mexico United or whatever. They're about the business of football. They don't want any kind of outside distractions. He's got a routine. He's playing he kind of walked us through it a little bit at the press conference with, hey, it's a Friday game. People are kind of looking, what the heck do you mean it's a Friday game, next week? He's treating it as if they're playing Friday because you lose a day because you got to fly all the way over to Hawaii and play the game. It's tough to beat the boys on the Rock. It is tough. You better have a plan when you go over there. They will make you like them. If you go over there, they will beat you and make you like it over there on the Rock. So, and I think Bronco understands that, and he's treating it. This is a business trip. This is not, we're not going to Maui or the Big Island to relax and have comfort. And I think he's treating this week as a business week. It's not, hey, you get 24 hours, you enjoy it. Everybody's going to pat you on the back and tell you how great you are. But guess what? You got one more game, and they're not trying to lose the game. They're going to remind you that they expect to win, and they're upset that you blew them out last year. They're going to be waiting for you, and they're going to be ready to play you. So I think they've got the right attitude. I think they want to get into a bowl game, and some of the things I'm hearing, they may not want to play in the New Mexico Bowl. They may want to go to a different bowl, and that's okay too. But because I think Sebietta's going to be ready to punch them in the face if they don't play in the New Mexico Bowl. But it's just an exciting time, and I think Bronco realizes that, hey, this, you just never know what to expect with college kids in the college game, and all kinds of things are happening. You got guys that are hurt, and like I was telling Ed and those guys at the table, that nose guard, I thought, man, what a good job, and they were rotating a bunch of them, but man, to play that two gap on that center, that's a man's job, because you're getting double teams from guards. The biggest guys on the line are really attacking you, and they're coming down on you. And for you to hold your own in that scheme is really tough sledding. And I thought they did a decent job. They ran up almost 500 something yards too. So I mean they were moving the ball up and down the field. We gave up the big ones early, but we kind of weathered the storm on defense. And this trip is going to be business to Hawaii. And I think, the defense is going to play a big part in it.
Where, let's go back to August and the middle end of August, and they're playing Montana State. And then that fourth quarter happens and they get steamrolled by Montana State. What improvements have you seen from the team, Ned?
Just schematically on defense, they really haven't improved that big a deal. The quarterback, like Bronco was talking about, he didn't have as many touches early in the year. I mean, he ran the ball, but, they tried to spread the ball around. They were trying to find themselves who was going to be the guys, who were going to be the bell cows, who the guys you can depend on week in and week out, who's mad they're not getting reps, who's not buying into the program, who's not going to be a part of the culture, who's going to be – I mean, you're trying to find all those things out through the course of the season. Now the kids have to go to class. Now there's girls on campus. Whose attention are you not going to be able to keep, and who's not going to buy into what you're trying to get them to do on a weekly basis. And, Bronco always, he always points out how, it's all about the kids. It's all about them. It's about, everybody who's in the program, who's fighting every day to do their best and work hard and all those things. And that's what happens as you go through a season. And it's really kind of great to see. I mean, when you get fresh new coaches in here, I mean, they got the energy, they're sticking to it when you win, whether you win or lose. They've got to all come back and look at each other and get back on the grind and get guys ready to play. And, it was next man up. The corner got hurt. This speech guy, they've talked to him all year. Guys have quit. Guys have, tanked and not, come around to be ample replacements for the guy who goes down. And so this young kid's speech has to go in there now. He can run. He's long. He's got great, physical features, but what does he do when they say set hike and the lights are on? And he was able to step up and stay with some of those guys they had 4 really good receivers, I thought. And I was talking to their guy before the game, even their radio guy. I'm like, man, these little dudes, man, they can go now. And one guy was a 5-star recruit transfer they got from Oregon, who it just didn't work for him at Oregon. He's there now, that little number 1. And I mean, I was like, this little guy, man, he can go. And number 2, Kyle Williams, he played at UNLV 2 years ago. He's one of their top receivers. Ricky White, he got upset because Rich was getting all the catches, so he wanted to go play. We thought, and they thought he was a good player, so they got him, and he winds up being one of their better players. So it's just one of those things where, you're finding out that these guys are all bought into what Bronco's selling, and it's going to be, a good season or a good future too if he's able to keep this momentum going.
Would it be detrimental that they played in the New Mexico Bowl? I think this year, for the kind of the resurgence of UNM football, I think it's an okay thing.
Well, yeah, it depends on what your vision and what Bronco's vision is. Bronco may see it as a way to get other people outside of New Mexico to see them. I mean, it could be used for recruiting. Like, all the coaches are out recruiting right now. All the assistants are out recruiting. And this is the best week to go recruiting. Hey, we beat the number 18 team. Did you see us on TV? Hey, this is when you find out which guys can really recruit. Because if you can't recruit after beating this team on national TV, wait a minute now. You better be a genius as far as schematics go, as far as coaching. Because there's only one thing it needs you for. Either you're going to be the guy who can coach, or you be the guy who can recruit. And I would take a guy who can recruit all day, every day. I just need a coordinator. Just give me 4 other guys on that side of the ball that can recruit, because you got to get the horses if you want to be able to beat people.
He is a former quarterback for the University of New Mexico. You can catch him on Lobo Radio Network pre-game, halftime, post-game with JJ Buck, before and after UNM football games. His name is Ned James. Ned, joining us every Monday at 4:30. We always appreciate you. Thank you.
Hey, thank you guys for having me. Take care.
Yep. That was Ned James. Appreciate his time. As always, he's fantastic. And I'm sorry on YouTube that we lost the stream. It wasn't gone on X, so we kept rolling with the interview. Quick commercial break, and we'll talk the game at St. John's yesterday in Madison Square Garden for UNM men's basketball. I'm sure a lot of people are chomping at the bit to get to that. I just felt that the football game was of much, much importance and program defining. Plus, we'll give Rick Thompson a couple more minutes to hop back on. This is Ed Nunez, Ryan Tamori. This is the Pit Press Live.
Ladies and gentlemen, from La Casa.
I dropped the top on the 6th Street. Fly in my eyes, didn't envy me. Passing it off like CP3. Shawty, she calling me MVP. I be on time, it's something you ain't never seen before. They call me the Dama, really want my whole team to score. Damn, yeah, too icy, yeah, too clean, yeah, my zone, yeah, 2-3, yeah, got shooters that hit from deep, bust like Giannis, yeah, too mean. Bright lights like we at the garden, on P, don't even started. Whole team walk in me the party. If I can't make the play, I'ma lob it. If you jump, that's right on your head. Had to put him to sleep, go to bed. I'm a star, drop 50 and left. From the logo, like I'm Steph. Put it up, knock him down every time. Go real when it comes to the playoffs. You fight with me, know it's a KO.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
Welcome back to the Pit Press Live. My name is Ryan Tamori, coming to you live from Central New Jersey. Very happy to be back, or Plymouth Rock, whatever Rick wants to decide. Let me fix that there. Appreciate Ned James joining us. He's always fantastic. Sorry, I got my second win there, and I guess I got my second win by going to the bathroom. Still very, very happy. I've got the wrong producing the show sometimes isn't the easiest. There we go. That's better. I try very hard. For those that lost us on YouTube, I apologize. And for the audio at the beginning, I didn't. Thank God I'm not a pilot, because I didn't double check anything. Thought it was a big win against Washington State again. I'm slightly jealous that I'm there, but I'm happy to be on the East Coast. We will now get to what was probably coming off one of the biggest wins in program history, and then heading into maybe one of the other biggest games in UNM men's basketball history. St. John's. UNM fell at MSG, and for me to be there was quite the experience. I definitely have some thoughts on the game, but Rick, I will throw it over to you, as St. John's pulled away at the end and they defeated UNM in the Garden 85-71. I wanted your overall thoughts.
Yeah. Early on, the Lobos hung in there for first 10 minutes. I think it was about 14-11 with 11 minutes to go. And that's when St. John's really put together that 14-2 run to go up 28-15 with 7 minutes left. And from that point on, they were able to cut it to 6 or 7 in the second half. But man,
four.
The three guards, or the three wing players of St. John's, were just way too much. When you got Kaderi Richmond, David Smith, and R.J. Lewis, R.J. Lewis just did whatever he wanted. 11 rebounds for him, 7 assists, just an all-around fantastic game. And, they just really played harder than the Lobos. They out-rebounded them. What was the final margin here? 49-32. Nelly only 4 rebounds. That's just a little disappointing to me. He got totally dominated in my eyes by Zuby of St. John's on the other end. They were just much more physical and seemed like more prepared for this game. I didn't think the Lobos were shook or anything like that, but those cold streaks really just took a toll. And in the second half, you saw our Coach Patino, countering that by starting CJ Noland, who had a nice game with 15 points, while Philly B saw 0 minutes in the second half. So going forward, it's going to be interesting to see, right, if Noland gets the nod to start or they keep him on the bench, because they really need, some scoring off the bench, which has been inconsistent so far. So just looking forward, I don't know if they're going to face a team as physical as this. One thing I did worry about the Lobos coming into the year is not really having two, what I would call bigger posts down low. Amzil battles as well as anyone. He hit some big threes yesterday, but he just can't match up with some of the other big men that play that position. In my eyes, on defense for him, it's just a little challenging. So looking forward, I don't know what other teams the Lobos are going to face that play this style. I think St. John's is probably the second best team in the Big East. They're just going to get better as time goes on, and Coach Patino sprinkles his magic on them. So maybe a Boise State, maybe a San Diego State are the other teams that'll create that type of matchup problem down low with just more physical players. And, we've been saying how long and bigger this team is. Well, they sure didn't look long or bigger to me the other day. So those are my initial thoughts. Not a huge letdown, but definitely a little disappointed in the overall effort.
I thought CJ Noland played really well, as did Mustafa Amzil. Mustafa might be the third best player on the team, depending on what we've seen. But, CJ Noland stepped up in 2 big games. He didn't play that well against Nichols or A&M, Texas A&M Corpus Christi, but he was very, very significant against UCLA, against the Red Storm, against the Johnnies, which I love saying. He came off the bench, 5 of 12, 2 of 5 from 3-point. 7. Yeah, we'll talk about the free throws. That was horrendous. Oh, holy moly! Played 28 minutes, but he had 15 points. I thought that was significant. To our demise of Rick and I's friend Tim Chavez, who's a Seton Hall alum. Kadari Richmond transferred from Seton Hall to St. John's, which is sacrilegious in these part of the woods. He had 14 points. All their starters were in double digits. Zuby, I still butcher his last name, but Zuby Ejiofor had 13 points. Aaron Scott, who played with CJ Noland at North Texas, had 14. He had a couple big threes. RJ Luis Jr., 21 points, led the way. Something that Richard Patino mentioned when the media started asking questions, he stopped people and said he was tasked with guarding Donovan Dent. Somebody mentioned in our group text that Donovan Dent looked kind of subpar and looked human. Kadari Richard, I think I mentioned, with 14th, and then the Utah transfer Davion Smith with 15. They only played 7 guys, and 3 guys off the bench, 2, and 4 points. That's your 85 points. That's insane. I'm just going to throw this out there, and then I'll let Ed chime in on his thoughts. UNM from the free throw line, 7 of 18 for 38.9%. St. John's 65%, 13 of 20. I think a lot of those misses came in the second half. UNM shot the ball very well from 3. Thankful to Nolan and Amzil, 44%. I thought that kept them in the game. I thought Amzil hit a couple shots that, threes that kept them in the game in the first half. Ed, I wanted your thoughts on the loss to St. John's, 85-71.
Yeah, it was a good first half. And then Rick mentioned they got a little bit cold from the field, but that's St. John's defense. Big East ball on full display. Now, you mentioned Amzil, Rick, and they've made him since last year. He's had to battle 4s and 5s, and he's willing. He's got the heart to do it. He sometimes doesn't have the athleticism to do it, and that was the case yesterday. But still, he played hard. They were able to guard Dent one-on-one. And, yeah, he had 12 and 6. Kenny Thomas and I texted back and forth after the game yesterday, and I mentioned that. He kind of looked ordinary, and Kenny said, yeah, we still had 12 and 6. Yes, he did, but if you notice, he didn't have the drives in the lane. He had one beautiful scoop left-handed shot, beautiful. But normally he gets in the lane, and there's rim protection on the backside. That's why he wasn't able to just go in there and saunter in and score, dish off. They've got active hands. They're long. They're lengthy. They disrupt. That's what they did in the first half. They disrupted New Mexico's timing on offense. CJ Nolan came in the second half and played well. He did. He played hard, but a lot of what he did was on his own, creating offense on his own, not set offense, creating, he drove to the basket, turnaround jumpers, a lot of one-on-one stuff. They needed that. They got back in the game. I will say that they battled back. They did. Not a lot of minutes for Atiki, 6 rebounds, 8 minutes. Applehans and Dotson. Dotson wasn't ready for the moment. That's obvious. He went in and turned the ball over. He'll have some great games down the line, but it wasn't one of his better games. You'd kind of expect that from a freshman. True had some moments, but remember, I think this is the most important thing. We don't. New Mexico doesn't play teams like that early in the season. Sometimes when they make the tournament, like they did last year, they go up against a big Clemson team, and they're out of the tournament because they're not ready to play that kind of basketball. So I think this is a very good test for the Lobos early on, and then because it'll get them ready. Then they've got VCU in a couple of weeks. He said he was going to strengthen the schedule. They beat UCLA. They lost to St. John's. So the schedule is a little bit harder, and I think it's a good challenge. And the free throw shooting was a little concerning. Nelly had started the season shooting well from the free throw line, and all of a sudden, he's kind of reverting back to what he shot last year. I think it was 58%. I can't remember, but yeah, he didn't shoot free throws well yesterday, and they got kicked on the boards. And a lot of that's athleticism. Yeah, you can block out all you want. Sometimes those guys have quick, they're quick bouncy guys, and they're athletic and they're on the rim, man. And those are tough guys to out rebound. They really are. So overall, I think a good effort. I was proud of the way UNM battled back. But again, I think it's a good test early in the season. So that way, if they make the tournament, they're ready. They've already seen St. John's. They'll play other good teams too, Boise State, San Diego State. But St. John's in the Big East, that's Big East ball there, man. And sometimes they didn't adjust to it. I thought they got better, cut it to 6. When they cut it to 6, I was like, hey, they have a chance here. And then St. John's was able to push them back down the hill. Some good things out of it. But I think it'll only make New Mexico better down the line for sure.
Just one more thing I had is one strange thing I'm looking at here is St. John's turned the ball over 16 times to New Mexico's 11, but New Mexico only scored 19 points off of 16 turnovers. So it's early in the first half, and I was listening to some of it on the radio because I was driving, but it seemed like New Mexico forced turnovers and they couldn't convert, right? They got a few lip outs at the rim, or they just didn't convert on those turnovers, and that's uncharacteristic for them, on top of the poor free throw shooting. So, I think they still caused a lot of turnovers. It was a game they could have been in, but, St. John's shot terrible from 3. So I think that rebounding effort, like you guys are mentioning, and the free throws obviously is the 2 biggest game changers.
But I think, I might want to get to, I definitely want to get to the fact that they were able to play this game. And as I mentioned, it was probably the second biggest sports story yesterday to Bills Chiefs. I know the NFL is king and I know the NFL is precedent. For them to be in the Garden, Patino, his father, is cool to be a part of his press conference because he told his wife, didn't tell his wife, he told John Rothstein, he criticized John Rothstein of CBS Sports about tweeting at 6 a.m. and he basically told him, like, why don't you wake up and hug your wife or have sex with your wife? He straight up said that. And I thought that was hilarious. The fact that they were able to play this game and the fact that Richard Pitino said he was going to do that, I did not think that they would split these 2 games. I thought that they would be 2-2. For the fact that they're 3-1 and they should be 5-1 come Monday morning, I think the committee is going to look at it, and I think the committee is going to look at the fact that now if you win the tournament and you win the regular season, you're probably in. But I think they're going to look at what they have done, and if they can get VCU at home, and I think VCU is going to be a big test. This plays well for them. Ed, you had mentioned Big East basketball. A lot of people mentioned this game was reffed differently. I said it was 4 to 5 points late in the game. But Ed, and I'm not criticizing the refs. I think it was officiated different, and it is a very, very good learning experience. I think this pans out well for this team. You know, I always mention on the show, I'm repeating myself, I'm the broken record, how, you know, I'm the negative Nancy and the naysayer. I think this team is pretty good. I think there's a lot of ways they can beat people. I think this is a first test. I'm curious how this game is played out. I'm not saying they win. I'm curious how this game plays. How this game is played later in the season down the stretch. He lost, you know, Patino lost to Santino with Iona 2 years ago. So I think, you know, he knew when he was ready, and it was a good crowd. I talked to a couple of St. John's fans in Penn Station after the game. I was sitting at a bar watching, waiting for my train watching football. And, you know, they had mentioned they thought UNM was a much better team, and they kind of expected this way to go. They didn't expect to lose. It's one of those things where maybe the score isn't as indicative. Obviously, if you bet on it, yes. But Ed, I wanted to throw that your way, and I think you kind of touched on it, how this game was officiated different. This is Big East basketball.
It is, but I'm not sure what crew was used. I'm not sure if they used a Big East crew or a Mountain West or mixed crew. Usually it's a Big East or a crew from one certain region. So yeah, it probably was a Big East crew, and a little bit different. They're not going to call some of the things that they might in the Mountain West or other conferences, the Big Ten, the ACC. And I know people are going to say basketball should be called all the same way, and it's not. That's just the way it is. You know, Big East ball back in the day, and I think Ryan, I think you showed something back in the day in nights from 1984, the Big East, when Ewing and St. John's was in there with Chris Mullen and all the players that they had back then. That was some real physical ball. It really was. So yeah, it's a little bit. But you know what? New Mexico has to rise to the challenge. It's a good test for them. They're going, if they're going to get where they want to get, there's going to be more physical challenges just like that one. So down the line, if they do get in the tournament and they play a physical team, they'll say, hey, you know what? We already went through that. You know, we went through a few of that in the Mountain West. It's nothing but good can come out of this game. They lost. That's not the good part. But I think they battled back. They made it a 6-point game. They didn't quit. And so I think, again, playing a tough, physical, athletic team like St. John's can only help you. St. John's is ranked number 22 in the nation. They're a good team. And Rick Pitino is a great coach. He's a Hall of Fame coach, man. You know, so it kind of made me laugh when he I think I told you that when he said in the paper that I'll be a proud papa and, you know, this and that. Yeah, that guy's a competitor. I don't care. I told my son that. I said, son, I love you more than anything in the world, but if I'm coaching against you, I want to beat you, and you want to beat me, you know? And so when he said that, I know that he meant it from the, you know, when he said, I think his wife was sitting behind, Mrs. Pitino was sitting behind Richard Pitino's bench because she said, he's my blood and you're not. That made me laugh when I read that. So, yeah, that made me laugh. That was a funny one, man. So, yeah, of course he wants to win. I mean, he would have been proud if your son had won, but yeah, you go to family gatherings like, hey, man, he's got one on you. You want to win. You're a winner. You want to win. So I thought it was a great game. And like I said, St. John's is a very good team. I like the way they play. They're going to be there. So I think for New Mexico, only good can come out of this. They'll get better, and they faced a tough opponent, didn't quit, and it's only going to help them down the ways when the season, you know, during the season.
I just want to say I agree with Ronnie in the comments. He's making a great point that they were only down 5 points with 4 minutes left. I'm kind of forgetting that when I'm looking at the score and remembering the last, you know, how the game went. I didn't realize that. So, you know, the Lobos played probably their worst type of game they could play. Dent wasn't on his best game. Nelly definitely wasn't. And they were only 5 points down, you know, to this type of team with 4 minutes left. So you guys are definitely right. I think it'll help them in the long run. And they showed even on a down game, they can hang in there with, you know, one of the other best teams out there. So definitely positives coming from this. But I think you're right, Ryan. Looking at VCU, they're the best team in their conference, and that's going to be a challenge at home coming up.
I was trying to find it. I thought what was fantastic yesterday was is it here? I don't know, St. John's. was the crowd chanting, "Who's your daddy?" Which, if you're a baseball fan and you're a Yankees fan and New York Yankees fan, let me talk properly, and a Boston Red Sox fan back in 03, 04, the "Who's your daddy" chant, because Pedro Martinez said, "Oh, New York's my daddy." And they started chanting it. It was asked to somebody, I think by an AP writer in the post-game press conference, about, did you hear the chants? And Richard Pitino, UNM's Richard Pitino, laughed it off, and he goes, I thought it was funny because I'm a Yankee fan. So the first thing I thought of was Pedro Martinez. And on our account, I tweeted it out because my dad was a Yankee fan. Obviously, I'm in New Jersey now, even though I'm the token Mets fan. I thought that was fantastic. And then they asked Richard Pitino about it, or Rick Pitino, and he was kind of like, I didn't really appreciate it. So I think he was, looking out for his son. And I saw it on Instagram today, and I couldn't find it, that he was trying to trying to quiet the crowd chanting it. But I mean, that game kind of went, I'm not X's and O's. Yes, yeah, actually, you're right, Ronnie. It is. There's a clip of, I wish Jacob was on. There's a clip of Pedro Martinez on Family Feud Celebrity Edition, and they asked him to rhyme something with yummy, and he goes, Miami. So it's great if you look that up. I wanted to point something out here. St. John's' schedule coming up. They play Baylor in a tournament in the Bahamas on Thursday. Then they will face either number 11 or number 9 Tennessee or Virginia, and they're purposely playing Georgia there in the Bahamas because Georgia's there for another tournament. So that is quite the schedule. So again, this is not, UC, no offense to UC Santa Barbara or UC Irvine. You have played two predominantly well-known college basketball programs. And I still think how special it was for UNM to get this game in Madison Square Garden. Another one of the comments was, well, is you going to get St. John's to go to the Pit? And Rick Pitino said no, and Richard Pitino said no. I don't think my dad's going to go out to UNM, which I don't understand that. Somebody would have to explain that to me. I don't know why he wouldn't return the favor, maybe because of the traveling. I understand that. But again, the national recognition, I don't know why Richard wouldn't go out. He had mentioned that, if he was back at Iona in 2 to 3 years, then he'd go back to the Pit. That's over my head, and that might be a stupid comment. I don't know why he wouldn't do that. Again, I get the traveling costs. I get it. I don't know why he wouldn't do it. Hell, maybe you come back out here next year and play him again in Carnesecca Arena in Queens, or you play him again in Madison Square Garden. Who knows? But they get a lot of their. I was talking to one of a St. John's fan in in Penn Station after the game, and they get a lot of games, a lot of the big games at Madison Square Garden, like Villanova, Georgetown, UConn. I don't know when they play UConn. They play UConn on February 23rd at noon in Madison Square Garden. I mean, that's quite the game. I thought it was a cool experience. I know I was there. I'm the Knicks fan. I've repeated that. I grew up, I spent a lot of time here as a kid in central New Jersey. I fly into Newark. You can see the city. For me to be there and who have worked in the city and the alumni event at a bar called Stout, which was literally a block away on 33rd, was super cool. Yeah, I got to give it to UNM fans, man. I've been very much more positive on this show than when we started. They showed out. And when they made a play happen, it got loud. But obviously, there were probably 13,000, 14,000 St. John fans strong there. But I think it's a huge benefit to UNM. And the fact that they got that athletic department and those two programs got a lot of national attention by what transpired at University Stadium and what happened Sunday in Madison Square Garden. There might have even been more people at Madison Square Garden than at the football game on Saturday night. But I don't know if you guys have any other final thoughts. I just went on a rant there because I thought I was at UCLA last Friday night. I thought they punched UCLA in the mouth. And I thought this was a cool experience for everybody involved. I thought it was awesome. I don't know if you guys have any other final thoughts. I definitely wanted to throw out St. John's schedule there, though.
Just one, Ryan, for you. That's awesome. I don't know how many Lobo road games I've seen. Not a whole bunch. I've seen most of the games here in the pit. So for you to be able to watch the Lobos play UCLA in Las Vegas, and then the St. John's yesterday at Madison Square Garden, what a dream, man. I know you got some Jersey roots and you're enjoying your time there. So I think that's awesome, man. It really is. And
I didn't, and I don't mean to interrupt you there. I'm trying not to do that. I didn't even mention that I went to the Rutgers game on Friday night. They played Monmouth. Monmouth has a guard. I need to look him up. I think it was, oh my goodness. He hit shot after shot after shot against them. Rutgers did win. But Ace Bailey, who was the second overall recruit, I think behind Cooper Flagg, he chose Rutgers from Chattanooga, Tennessee. I don't know how the hell he ended up in Central Jersey. But Monmouth played them. They made the short drive up Route 18 here in New Jersey to Rutgers. And I don't know why I typed in Monmouth basketball. I'm looking for him. Bashir Jr. And then it's somebody with a great name that I loved. Sorry, as I'm doing this right now. Cornelius Robinson III, General Cornwallis, General Cornrow Wallace. Now we're starting to show our age, Rick. Ace Bailey, his first shot with Rutgers was from the corner. He hit it. It was a 3. Thought that was awesome to see. It was part of that. Rutgers basketball is not a big deal, and I want to talk about the rack real quick at Jersey Mike's Arena. Rick, you'd commented when I sent you guys the photo of me walking into Jersey Mike's Arena, and I have a Barstool shirt that says "Still the Rack" because I've seen games there before. There's multiple campuses for Rutgers, and it can confuse people. It's just not one big campus. But it's in Piscataway. It's not far from the football stadium, which is the birthplace of college football. But it's just a big cement building, and it looks like a prison, or it looks like a piece of shit from the outside when you walk in. What they did was spruce it up with the Jersey Mike stuff all over it. But when you walk, it's so fun. And I didn't get a Jersey Mike sub in the arena. I was a detriment. My aunt, I went with my aunt. She kind of made the comment. She's like, "I'm surprised you didn't get a Jersey Mike sub." But when you're inside the rack or Jersey Mike's Arena, it's cool. It has become a very hard place. What Steve Peichel has done here, he's done a very good job. And I had some family friends telling me 5, 6, 7 years ago when I went with them and saw them get ass blasted by Indiana, that Peichel was turning this thing around. And I think he came from Quinnipiac. But it's a hard place to play now in the Big Ten. I was very impressed with the student section. UNM, you do a somewhat good job. I still think, I don't know if it's a bigger school or whatnot. The dorms are across the street. There's very nice area around, except for the rack. Or Jersey Mike's Arena was just a big cement hexagon or whatever. I don't know what you want to call it. Inside is cool, and I love the court with the state of New Jersey behind the R. But I will say this, though. It has nothing on the pit. And again, I'm being positive. We are very privileged in the college basketball world with watching games and viewing them and having the atmosphere as the pit. The rack only holds like 9,000 people, and there might have been 7,000 there. So I know that was a long ramble. And these are the two schools I have connected in my life because I watch Rutgers and football and basketball kind of religiously here. And throwing this out there while I was here, Rutgers football beat my old friend Mike Loxley at Maryland on Saturday. So I was very, very happy about that. Might go to some of the comments here, but any of you have any other final thoughts? Rick, I don't think you got yours in.
Just commenting on why I guess St. John's wouldn't travel to the pit, or some of these other bigger schools don't want to come to mid-majors. It's just, I don't think they would want to risk that type of loss on their resume. But then you see a game that's happening tonight, like Gonzaga at San Diego State, and they had a home and home series, right? So you would think that something would be able to be worked out between UNM and a bigger school like Gonzaga and San Diego State are doing tonight. But still a great viewing over the weekend for Lobos, both sports. I think Ned James, just talking about football really quick, that's a huge win for recruiting and transfer portal next year. So just great weekend all around and great exposure for the teams, and just looking forward to what the next few weeks bring here.
And Ed, I don't know if I'm sorry when Ned, come on. I'm sorry. Ed Nunez. I don't know if I cut you off there. I'm sorry. Did you have anything?
No. You know what? Great show, guys. Way to wrap it up, both on both the football and basketball end, and I'm looking forward to New Mexico playing Grambling on Thursday.
I will be flying back.
I got one
Rick.
last thing. Former Lobo Jalen House, playing in the G League for the San Diego Clippers, went off last night off the bench. 22 points. I think had 4 or more threes, couple of steals. So he's playing his game in the G League, and he had his best game so far last night. I reposted the highlights on my Twitter, so go check it out. He's doing good things.
Before we go, I've always got to do it.
Mr. Hutz, why are you burning all your personal papers?
As of this moment, Lionel Hutz no longer exists. Say hello to Miguel Sanchez.
Awesome second half. Crowd felt the momentum turn about midway through the third quarter after their second stop. Felt so good. No turnovers and low number of penalties. He's talking about the Washington State win. Very happy I was able to travel this last week to Vegas, and I had low energy tonight. I apologize, guys. Very, very excited that I went to the UCLA game. Very happy to be here on the East Coast. I'm staying with family, and she's been very gracious to let me set up here, even though it wasn't really that bad. I won't be able to join the show tomorrow night or Wednesday night. I don't know if Eric has any plans to do it. Again, they play Thursday at 7 against Grambling State, and then Sunday night is against Texas Southern, who's a team who's predominantly been in the NCAA tournament, I think winning the Southland. So those are the next 2 games. And then obviously UNM has their third and final bye week right before Hawaii. We're going to have to build up that game because that going in there, that's big for UNM. Appreciate you, Rick and Ed.
Richard.
Hope you guys have a good rest of your evening. We appreciate everybody watching on YouTube, on X. Check out our website, the Pit Press NM. Everybody have a good rest of your week. Stay safe. I don't know. We'll probably do a show Saturday morning. We'll talk a little college football, and then we'll try to do something before Texas Southern. Lobos opened up last season against us. Yes, they did. They beat them with, kind of wasn't what that schedule was. But, yeah, they're very good. They've been very good in their conference. And I think they were in the tournament for 2-3 years straight. I don't think they made it last year. Hey, thank everybody for watching. Really appreciate it. Rick, Ed, thank you for watching. Everybody have a great Monday night, and go Texans.
Go DeVito.
Yeah. Hey, Tommy DeVito. That guy with the gabagool. Hey, the really bad Barstool always posted, but yeah, Tommy DeVito. They're starting him over Drew Lock. So Daniel Jones, I didn't listen to anything here today, but Daniel Jones has been demoted to 3. And I defended Daniel Jones for as long as I could because I thought he was really athletic. I can no more. Cam Ward or Shador Sanders sweepstakes now. Do not draft Ashton Genty because the Giants will just do to him what they did to Saquon Barkley. But yeah, I'm pumped for the DeVito era to return. Hey, and I'm not even Italian. Everybody, wait, I got to go to 2 more comments. Shaq's son was on the team. That's right. I think so. Yeah, DeVito needs to be on the Jersey Mike's commercials with Danny DeVito. It should be Danny DeVito Arena. I think you said that, Rick.
I can't take credit for that one.
Greg Lujan, crazy fact of the week. UNM is the only Mountain West Conference football team with a ranked win. Is that true? I'm going to have to look that up.
Well, Boise beat Washington State early in the year, but I don't think Washington State was ranked, that might be true.
That might be true. I will look into that. Hey, I got to do it. Hey, everybody have a great Monday night. Have a great week. Aggies won, just like I told you. Yeah, John. They played pretty well.
I hope you enjoyed that roller coaster ride, John.
Yeah, they want to get back to winning ways down in Cruces. Follow Nick Coppola on Twitter. Now officially, everybody have a great Monday. Enjoy the rest of your week, and thank you guys as always for joining me and our listeners. Appreciate it. Have a good one. My name is Ryan Tamori. This is the Pit Press Live.